Starting off, of course, this lesson is called the Majestic Qur'an, Reciting with Ease. And we've called it this for a reason, because inshallah we'll be reciting with ease. You'll see that the way I take approach in teaching tajweed is a bit different from your normal way of learning tajweed, inshallah. Just to go over the structure of the lesson, as you all know, this lesson will be taking place every Thursday after Isha. I will try my best not to exceed an hour, inshallah, okay? Because I know everyone has obligations and it does get very late. The focus of the lesson will be divided into 3 parts. The first 20 minutes will be focusing on the theoretical aspect of tajweed, meaning covering all the tajweed rules from the beginning, inshallah, bit by bit, inshallah. The second or the next 20 minutes will be focusing on a group recitation, where I recite and you recite after me. And this is the unique part of this lesson, is that we will be analyzing some of the common mistakes made within the verses. Generally, when you go to read to a teacher, what happens is you read to him, then he takes the mistake out. We're going to flip it. We're going to take the mistake out first, talk about the common mistakes that are made, so that way you're prepared before you start to recite. You know exactly what's going on. And the last 20 minutes will be an opportunity for you all to recite, inshallah. Whoever can, of course we've got a big gathering today, mashallah, but whoever can recite in those 20 minutes, I'll give them a chance to recite. And we'll switch over every week so that everyone gets a chance to recite bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Is that okay, inshallah? Everyone ready? Bi'idhnillah. طيب. Let's get started, inshallah. It's very important that when we start any science, that we have an introduction to the science. We have an introduction to the science. You can't jump into a science without knowing exactly what's going on. Right? Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to be giving fatwas left, right, and center. Right? You have to have a good introduction. And an introduction means that you need to understand what the science is about. If someone comes and asks you what's tajweed, you can't just say it's reciting the Qur'an. No, there's more to it. Saying that, inshallah, the first 3-4 lessons or 5 lessons, we'll be focusing on the introduction to tajweed. About 3 to 5 lessons will be on introduction to tajweed. Thereafter, we'll start getting into the theoretical aspect, which is the rules in of itself. Here, I've listed 10 things, known as the 10 foundations of any science. In Arabic, it's known as al-mabadi al-ashara. Whenever you want to study a science, from the Islamic sciences, if you want to get an overview of this science, there's something known as al-mabadi al-ashara. Al-mabadi al-ashara are the 10 foundations that you can touch on. When you touch on these foundations, that means you have an overview of what the science is. And what are these 10 foundations? Number 1 is the definition. How to define the science. What does it mean? Number 2 is the purpose. Why are you learning it? Number 3, the ruling to learning the science. Is it compulsory? Is it sunnah, etc.? Number 4, the benefits of learning this science. What are the benefits of you studying Qur'an, for example? The next one is the inventor. Who invented the science? Was it there at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Did it come after? Etc. Then the name of the science, the topic, the subject areas, and 2 more things: attribution. What is it attributed to? What kind of science does it come under? And the last thing is this science, where is it derived from? Okay? So these 10, if you learn these 10, okay, in detail, what will happen? You'll know, you'll have a good introduction and you'll have a good understanding of the science you are studying. Inshallah, today we will be focusing on 3 elements: the definition, the purpose, and the ruling. And then we'll get into inshallah, the practical side of things. The first thing we're going to be talking about is the definition of tajweed. How do we define tajweed? What does tajweed mean? When we are talking about tajweed, guys, or any kind of... When we are talking about an Islamic science, it's important that we take this science from 2 aspects. One is the linguistic meaning of it, okay? And the second is the shar'i, the Islamic terminology and the Islamic meaning for it. And generally you'll find a correlation between the 2. That there is the linguistic meaning and the Islamic meaning, and it has a correlation, okay? So the linguistic meaning to tajweed generally means proficiency or doing something well. This is where you get words such as jawda. I'm sure there's a shop here called jawda, no? Outside? There's a shop called Jawda, I'm sure I've saw somewhere. Jawda means the quality of something. When you are putting quality into something. And in Arabic you hear the word Jayyid. So those of you who know Arabic, you hear the word Jayyid. Jayyid means what? Good. It comes from this word. Jawda, Tajweed, all have the three letters, isn't it? Jim, Waw, Dal. Okay? When it comes to the Islamic terminology of Tajweed, what does it mean? I'm going to give a definition right now, but I want to point out something very important. When it comes to Islamic terminologies, they are not binding. What do I mean by that? Like if I give you a definition now, and you go home, and you open a Tajweed book, and you find a different definition, does that mean I'm right and he's wrong, or he's right, I'm wrong? No, it's not binding. It's something that the scholars came up with. So you get different definitions. Okay? So when it applied to the Qur'an, Tajweed, it means what? Giving every letter of the Qur'an its due rights and according to its characteristics. Two very important things within this definition. One is its due rights, and number two is according to its characteristics. Okay? When it comes to huruf, when it comes to the letters, we know that it has certain characteristics, right? For example, when I say asa, sin, it's got this lightness to it, right? I can't say asa, it'll change the meaning, okay? That's a certain characteristic of it. The due right, what does that mean? Sometimes letters, it changes. If you put a kasra, or what we call zir, on it, what happens? It becomes light, right? For example, the ra, ru, and then do we say ri, or what do we say? Ri. What's happened to the letter? It's changed, isn't it? So its right has changed as well, right? Once it was heavy, once it was light. So all of these things are very important. Now something that we analyze in this definition is there's no emphasis on any of the rules except for what? Letters. Giving every what? Letter its due right. That's why Tajweed, when I teach Tajweed generally, I say to everyone, the most important thing about Tajweed is letters. Most important thing. If you've got your letters on point, everything else will follow. Okay? So it's very important that we give emphasis to the letters. This is why we will have a dedicated session, or few sessions, just focusing on the Arabic letters. Moving on, what is the purpose of learning Tajweed? It is to make the reciter proficient in reciting the Qur'an, observing the correct pronunciation of every letter with the rulings and characteristics which apply to each letter without exaggeration or deficiency. The last sentence is the most important thing. The first and the last. First is, of course, that we want to become proficient in reciting the Qur'an. That's the purpose of learning Tajweed. That we want to become like the Qur'an, the likes of Husari bin Shawi, rahimahumullah. Right? The second aspect of this point that I mentioned here is without any exaggeration or deficiency. With any science that you learn, with any ilm that you learn, you'll always find two groups of people. Those that over-exaggerate, or those that just take it very lightly. Okay? But our deen is wasat. We take it in the middle. We don't over-exaggerate, nor do we just let it go. Okay? So it's very important that we have this balance. The next question, and this one is a controversial question. What is the ruling to learning and applying Tajweed? I want the audience to engage, inshallah. Anyone? Yes. Sorry? Not compulsory, mashallah. Anyone else? Anyone? No? Everyone's a bit shy today. Inshallah, we'll get the audience to engage, inshallah, in the next lessons, upcoming lessons. When it comes to learning and applying Tajweed, we have to differentiate between learning and applying. They're two different things. Understand? So learning means what? Knowing the names of the rules. This is iqlab, this is idhar, etc., etc. Knowing the definitions, all of that stuff. And then applying is a different thing. So both have different rules. Number one is with the learning aspect of it. When it comes to any science, we find the scholars, they say that it's fard kifaya. And fard kifaya means it's a communal obligation. Does everyone know what fard kifaya is? The janazah salah. An example. If someone passes away on the other side of the world, for example in America, are we obliged every single person to pray his janazah? Who is it upon? Locality, right? Isn't it? This is called the fard kifaya, communal obligation. If a group of people do it, it suffices for the rest of the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, tajweed. If a group of people are standing and they are revising the rules and they are learning the rules, it suffices for the rest of the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is a group of people doing that? They are, right? So that fard kifaya is done. And that is regarding learning the tajweed rules. Moving on, the next thing that we have is the most important aspect, and that is the application of tajweed rules. Here, scholars have differed, and you will hear many opinions. I've boiled it down to two opinions. The first of these opinions is that it's fard ayn, an individual obligation. That means every single person must apply tajweed. Everyone's probably scared right now. Subhanallah, I'm leaving out fard ayn, right? That is an opinion. That is an opinion. And many of the traditional scholars, the likes of Ibn al-Jazari, rahimahullah, and many others, they held this opinion. And they're very strict with this kind of approach. But this is just one opinion. The opinion that we're going to be, inshallah, inclined to is something that Shaykh Syed, hafidhahullah, he mentions in his book, which I'm going to break down. It's a bit detailed, so please, inshallah, stay with me, bi'idhnillah. The first is, if it is pertaining to the articulate points of the letters, that means the makharij, the way we pronounce the letters, then it is mandatory to abide by it. Meaning, the makharij al-huruf, the way we pronounce the letters. Kha, we don't say ka or ka, right? Okay? Tha, we don't say sa. These are the makharij al-huruf. Then we have to abide by it. Because if you change a letter, what happens? It changes the meaning. Any examples? I know there's one example that everyone knows. Who knows how to say dog in Arabic? Kalb. Okay, how do you say heart in Arabic? Qalb. Same word, but just two letters are different. Imagine you read in the Qur'an, you're talking about the dog, but you say qalb. A'udhu billah. Change the meaning, right? So it's very important that the makharij al-huruf are on point. Second is when it comes to the characteristics, the sifat of the huruf, of the letters, then we have two scenarios. If changing the characteristics takes the letter out of its essence, such as changing it from a heavy to a light letter, then this is not permissible, and abiding by the characteristics is mandatory. For example, the example that I gave before. Okay? We have the verb asa. And asa, what does asa mean? When a person hopes to do something. Okay? Asa gives a different meaning. Okay? One meaning is it's a stick, asa. Okay? Right? And then another meaning is that he sinned from ma'asiyah. So it changes the meaning. So if this happens, then this is not permissible. So this is why we need to abide by those kind of characteristics. Then we have other characteristics that are used for beautification. Such as when it comes to the rules of ra. You'll come to see, inshallah, in a couple of lessons, that the rules of ra are very detailed. Right? Right? For example, I'm reading wal al-fajr now. The ra, should it be heavy or should it be light? People are going to get confused, right? Don't know. If a person makes a mistake here, this is known as tahsiniyya. It's only for beautification. When it comes to this aspect, then we have to look at it again. If it was through talaqqi, meaning your shaykh taught you in a specific way. He told you that this letter, it's heavy. Make sure you do it heavy. And then you, what did you do? You went back home. I'm not going to listen to my shaykh. I'm going to read it as empty mouth. Light letter. Then this is not permissible. Because talaqqi is very important. The way you take from your shaykh, you have to abide by it. This is where we get the whole concept of ijazah, isn't it? That you read to a shaykh. He read to a shaykh. But you have to try to read the way that he taught you. If you start to read a different way, then what's happened? You're basically falsifying this ijazah. You're saying that, oh no, this ijazah is not right. Okay? So this is through talaqqi. If a person isn't doing through talaqqi, which is majority of the cases, our average person who isn't learning through a teacher is learning through self-learning. Then there's two rules. One is if it's a learned individual, someone who's proficient in tajweed, and then what does he start doing? He starts making errors, blunders. Then this is something that he shouldn't do. And he's blameworthy for that. Right? So he has to ensure that he abides by the tajweed rules. The second person is the ordinary average layman who doesn't really know much about tajweed and he's making mistakes. Then he's not blameworthy. Do you understand? So this is a breakdown of the rule of application of tajweed. But remember, there are other opinions, and there's another opinion that's just mustahab, that's recommended to have tajweed. But this is more of the safer option. Why? Because it has that balance between the two. Right? Okay. Moving on, inshallah, mistakes in tajweed. This is one aspect that's not within the 10 fundamentals, but I wanted to talk about it because then it has a correlation with what we mentioned before. Okay? What we mentioned before. Mistakes in tajweed are very important. And they are of two types, lahan jali and lahan khafi. Lahan jali is the major mistake, okay? A clear and major mistake that will change the meaning, such as the example that we give, kalb and qalb. Okay, when a person makes such a major mistake, then what will happen is, of course, he's going to get a sin. طيب. Then we have the unobvious mistakes, lahan khafi, right? Such as the example I gave of wal fajr. Right? You didn't do the tafkhim, you didn't make the ra heavy as it's supposed to be. Okay? These are minor mistakes, and you won't get a sin for that. So we have to differentiate. We can't just say everyone who makes a mistake in reciting Qur'an is going to get a sin for it. We have to differentiate between them. Okay? So saying that, alhamdulillah, that is, I'm good with time, right? It was 20 minutes. I said, okay, alhamdulillah. So that was 20 minutes of the theoretical aspect. Okay? For today, that's the rules covered. And I want you all to do is this lesson that you're coming for, don't make it just a general lesson where you're coming in and then going home. Try to memorize and learn everything that you're going through with me, inshallah. So every other lesson I'll ask questions randomly. I won't target anyone, I'll just randomly ask, inshallah. Okay? That way, the important thing about ilm is that you learn it and you preserve it. Not that it comes in one ear, goes out the other ear, okay? So it's very important that we do that, inshallah.